Hey everyone, this is C.L.S. All in One, and today I'm going to show you how to do some knockdown texture and hopefully save you a little bit of money. So today I'm going to be doing a knockdown texture on the ceiling, and I got all the walls masked off, so I'm ready to go. And something I'd like to mention before I get started, I have primed everything first. I did do a coat of primer on all my sheetrock. Then after I did all my sheetrock joints, I went back and spot primed those areas. And the reason I prime everything first is you'll have a much more consistent texture pattern if you have primer on everything. For instance, if you have primer in one area and not another, that texture might dry faster, and when you go to knock it down, you'll have a different looking pattern. So the end product will be a lot better if you have it primed first. And for texture, I'm just using some premixed sheetrock mud. This is a 4.5 gallon bucket. You can use this stuff that's not premixed too. There's just a little bit more work involved when it's not premixed, but the end product is the same. So even though this mud is premixed, it still has to be thinned out in order to spray through the texture gun. And usually for a 4.5 gallon bucket of premixed mud, it takes about 32 ounces of water to get it to the right consistency so I can spray it through my texture gun. And how much water you have to add might vary. For instance, that mud could be a little bit wetter, could be a little bit drier, but the consistency we're going for is a thick pancake batter. That's what we want this to look like when we're done mixing it. So this is how I like it to look for knockdown texture. If I was going to just do orange peel texture, I'd probably thin this out some more, but for knockdown, this is going to be just right. So now I'm going to carefully pour some of this into the hopper in my texture gun. And for an air compressor, you want to use one that can maintain at least 25 psi. And before I start texturing, I always do a spray test first, whether it's on a piece of scrap sheetrock or a piece of plastic. I just want to make sure it's spraying good before I start spraying on the sheetrock. So there's a variety of different knockdown textures. We got heavy, medium, and light. And for this video, I'm going to be using a medium texture, so this is the spray pattern I'm looking for. And my texture gun also comes with 3 different nozzle tips. I got one with a small hole, one with a medium hole, and one with a large hole. And for this texture, I'll be using the one with the medium sized hole. You also want to regulate the pressure on your texture gun. If you don't have a built-in regulator on your air compressor, you can get an inline regulator like this. And I like to shoot at about 20 psi, but if you want a thicker texture or lighter texture, you can increase or lower that pressure. The lower the pressure, the heavier your texture pattern gets. Now I'm going to hold my texture gun at about a 45-degree angle and start spraying. And if you're just learning, I'd recommend you start with a small area first until you get the hang of this. You don't want to mess up your entire ceiling. Just start in a corner or something until you get the hang of this. Also keep in mind, if you have that hopper all the way full with texture, it might spill out when you tip it this far. So I'd only fill that hopper maybe about half full. And that hopper also gets really heavy. So if you got that all the way full and you're trying to hold this overhead, that might get too heavy for you. So here's a look at what I sprayed so far. And when I'm spraying an area, I like to usually spray it twice. For me, it's pretty hard to get good even coverage with just one coat. So usually I go over that area twice and I can get some nice even coverage. After spraying that texture, I usually give it about 20 minutes before I start knocking it down. And this is what I use. I use a large plastic knockdown trowel, and for me, this works great. I also keep a wet sponge or a rag handy. And what my routine is I scrape the ceiling at about a 10-degree angle, and after each swipe, I clean off my knife with a sponge. Otherwise, it messes up my pattern. So it's been over 20 minutes, so let's go ahead and start knocking down that texture. So I'm gonna hold it at about a 10-degree angle here, and start scraping the ceiling. And after each swipe, I'm gonna go ahead and clean off my knife. That way the mud that's on my knife doesn't drag back through my texture and mess up that pattern. And when you're knocking down the texture, there's not a specific direction you have to go, but I would recommend try not to go over the same area twice, or it might mess up that pattern. And more than likely, you're gonna have some high spots and low spots on the ceiling where it might not knock down as well. And for these areas, you just change the direction of your knife to follow the curvature of the ceiling, and then it should knock down just fine. And here's an up-close look at the texture after knocking it down. And as you can see, it's knocked down all the high spots, giving it that knockdown effect. And here's an even closer look. So this is the pattern I was going for, and I'm happy with it, so I'm going to continue and do the rest of the ceiling now. And if that medium texture is not quite what you're looking for, and you'd like a lighter knockdown texture, just increase the pressure on the regulator by about 5 psi, and that should make a difference. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Hopefully this video helped you out and gave you some tips and can save you some money in the future by doing this yourself. And if you like this video, please click that like button. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe. And have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.